Hey, everybody. Welcome to another How to Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mathews, and I'm with Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training. For more information, you can find us at sandler.com. The following podcast is copyrighted by Sandler Systems Inc. and protected by U.S. copyright laws. This is How to Succeed at Being a Solutionary. And our guest this week is Michael Mathews. He's VP of Innovation and Technology at Oral Roberts University. He's done a ton of work selling big dollar amounts, but mostly the work in technology with innovation, digital solutions, and all kinds of information technology. We'll talk with him more about how to be a solutionary next. Michael, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a little bit about being a solutionary. What does that mean, and why do we want to be one?
Great question, Mike. I define the word solutionary as somebody who's willing to invest the time, the intellect, the emotion, the passion to find ultimate solutions for today's problems. We all have to face it, whether it's mental health today, financial issues, economic issues, that people need solutions, not just another sales pitch or not just another technology gadget. As a technologist for years, I couldn't stand when somebody wants a silver bullet, whether it's a sales product or maybe a technology solution. And so I say, really, there's no silver bullets. However, there's a solution to your issue. And I believe a solutionary can solve that problem for you.
Yeah, I love this concept. I think it's a great attitude for salespeople, but also for leaders. Really, your job is to help your employees or your clients solve problems and get to better outcomes. And so that solution might be buying your product or service. Hopefully it is, but it might be directing them somewhere else that's a better fit is the best way to help them at this time. And especially for employees, right? You're trying to help them overcome obstacles, find solutions, create innovations, but not necessarily do that for them or convince them that they should do it. You kind of have to help them co-create a solution sometimes. And I like this idea, but tell us what you think the ideal attitude is here for being a solutionary.
The ideal attitude is to understand, first of all, what people are looking for. And the reality is people will always buy something emotionally, not listen logically. So as a salesperson for years, I would find out, hey, they're listening to my presentation, they're listening logically, but the truth is they're still going to make an emotional decision. So as somebody who would be a solutionary, say, Mike, don't just solve their logical issue, solve their emotional issue. So when you think of EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ, but there's also something today called spiritual intelligence, SQ. And I myself, as a solutionary, have come up with a whole concept of a artificial intelligence called MQ. How do people perceive themselves? In other words, what's my intelligence about myself called mirrored intelligence? And so if I want to help somebody, ultimately, I have to hear all of those aspects of their problem, not just what their financial issue is or their immediate issue is at hand. And so it's a wonderful day if you're willing to listen and hear what people are really saying, thinking, and verbalizing in a nonverbal way.
I love that. And before we jump into it too much, I think we should probably set up your credibility here. Oral Roberts and being the VP of information there brings plenty with it, but you've published a ton of papers, and you also had what did you say, $64 million quota at some point?
Oh yeah, so I used to have to sell for a large company and had that pressure, and most of us who've never sold before think selling is easy. Oh, easy job. I've never been so tasked in my life to have a quota over my head and say, meet this every single month, every single year. So for 8 years, I would have that quota, but I had to learn, what is it that I'm really about? I don't want to just sell things. I want to understand how I solve things. So I'm privileged over 20 years to look back on my career and see I didn't just sell things, I solved issues for people that are now paying huge dividends over time.
And this is mostly to like CIO type people and technology sales, right? So
yeah, the sales
we have work with a lot of companies in that business.
Oh, absolutely. So in fact, I would meet with probably about 300 college and university presidents through an 8-year period of time and hear behind closed doors what their real challenge is, not just what they made known to the public. And so when you have that ear to hear behind closed doors, but also in the public setting, you really get to hit the mark a lot quicker than you would have otherwise. So prior to that, I was privileged to work 12 years at Cray Research supercomputer company. And in that, I got to learn probably 20 different industries: energy, automotive, manufacturing, finance, research, technology. And when you can hear and listen to multiple industries and their challenges, they somewhat correlate to one another. And therefore, you're able to find probably a better holistic solution for people's problems than just one size fits all, because you happen to work in technology or education.
I love that. If you want to find out more about Michael, you can go to Oral Roberts University, look for him there, or look for Michael Mathews, 1T in Mathews. He actually spells it correctly on LinkedIn or something. You can connect with him there. Now, let's jump back into, again, the work on being a solutionary and how we can use this to drive innovation, drive sales, and results. What do you think is a common mistake people make? So when they're not being a solutionary, what's the big thing that they're doing? Maybe they could recognize that they're doing wrong.
That they're maybe trying to boil the ocean all in one day, 1 week, 1 month. And the reality is life doesn't change that way. So we might find somebody who thinks that they're going to change Washington, D.C. or change politics and find out, well, that was a grandiose idea. But the truth is, almost anything is possible in today's world, but you have to understand the timing. So if I'm going to sell something to somebody, I have to understand timing is as important as anything. What's the event that's drawing a conclusion to something that I may have a solution to? But I don't want to sell a solution that's out of season. So I need to understand what the season of time is. So as an example would be this. I've been to the White House speaking 2 times, the United Nations 3 times. Department of Education has used me as a reference for numerous things, including blockchain. But the reality is, it wasn't time 10 years ago to talk about student loan debt. However, today is the day to talk about student loan debt. In fact, today, as we're recording this, Biden is coming on live in about half an hour and talking about forgiving $10,000 for everyone who makes less than $125,000 a year. Well, today's the day for somebody who's trying to resell education to somebody to say they can now afford a master's degree or a PhD degree because they were just forgiven their debt. Simple example, but listening to the sign of the times is so critical for any salesperson, any solutionary, because there's no worse solution than selling something out of season. Or as Peter Drucker once said, there's nothing more inefficient than to try to make something that's efficient enough more efficient. So really, using 3rd grade logic is what I say. I tell a lot of my employees, don't think any higher than a 3rd grader today. Pay attention to the basic logic of where we're at, listen to the people's emotions, have compassion, and let's find a solution to the problem, because nothing is that difficult in life. We're not sending rockets to the moon every day. So let's use that logic.
I love that, especially from somebody, who works with really complicated things in technology projects and stuff, is that most of the time it is emotional. Adults are just those 3rd graders in big people clothing. And the answer is pretty easy. What they want is pretty easy if you sit and pay attention to it enough, and you can find solutions that way. What would you say is maybe some hallmarks of a really good solution?
One of the hallmarks for sure is a good storyteller. How do I know maybe all this information in the back of my mind, but how can I synthesize it to tell a story that moves somebody's dial? And that's extremely important. I once had Admiral John Ryan, who was the admiral in the Naval Academy, but then he became the chancellor for the New York State Public Higher Education System. He looks at me and said, Mike, did you know you can do the impossible? Yeah, I suppose. He said, no, I'm serious. However, you have to understand the right time. And so as I watched for that over time, I started saying, Mike, don't tell a story out of season as well, because people hear a lot of stories. And so how could we tell a story that is pertinent for today that makes a difference? As an example would be, I tell this story that's sad in a way, but it's helpful. That every day in America, 115 people fall over dead of opioid overdose. And 50% of those are prescribed drugs by a licensed physician who has a PhD. Now, how is that possible in America that 115 people every single day can die? And I step back and say, Mike, what is the story you're trying to tell here? Well, I'm trying to say, does anybody care? And so come to find out that most states through time now have passed legislative law to only prescribe drugs like opioids for 3 days because it's between the fifth and seventh day that people become addicted. And so the states who have not passed a law like that find that they're very high in opioid overdose. And so we could tell story after story to say, how do we now change the way healthcare can be attended to by knowing that state law has changed, but also how not to harm people and help people in a different way. So I'm part of virtual reality. Immersive learning would be another term for it. Last December, a major breakthrough happened. A Solutionary was working along with other solutionaries to say, virtual reality is so mind altering, the FDA approved that for lower back chronic pain, virtual reality is more effective than opioid drugs. That moved my dial. I was trying to boil the ocean, yes, but I wouldn't tell anybody that. But eventually, when the FDA approves virtual reality as a remedy than opioid drugs, I just solved a world issue. And I'll tell you, I better not tell you another example because I may suck up all the time telling you my examples.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those stories really resonate, and you're hitting it with me as a sales trainer that it is that emotional why when the story resonates with the person hearing it, when they're open to hearing it at the right time, all of those things start to come into place. Now, behavior, I think, is an interesting one here because we've talked about it in a few different ways, but behavior in Sandler terms means goals, plans, and actions. And so I kind of heard you say you do have the goal of boiling the ocean, but you don't take action on that. You take action on these small steps in between. Does anything else come to mind when you think of behavior and doing the right thing at the right time as a solutionary?
Yeah, it's like most people prior to, let's say, the year 1970, who came up with phenomenal invention, borderline between going to the insane asylum and getting their patent approved or invention approved, because most people are in disagreement with major change, right? Because we're creatures of habit. And so what comes to my mind is that, yes, let's think maybe the ocean can be boiled, but it's not going to happen in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or whatever. And so how do we methodically, step by step, begin to see the shift happen? And therefore, over time, we can look back and rejoice to say, yes, my life did matter, my invention mattered, or innovation, or solution, but it happened because I was persistent, yet patient, yet kind enough to know that someone's got to buy this. And if I'm not kind to people and helping them understand through storytelling or fact telling, they're never going to believe the solution anyway. And I may be that one who goes into the insane asylum. And I would venture to guess there's a lot of salespeople out there who have given up on their career in sales because it was tough. It was difficult.
Yeah, we actually have a rule for that. We say only the prospect should become emotionally involved in the sale. But I know a lot of people are, especially small business owners and leaders. And I can tell you're a passionate guy that gets emotional about the thing. But I'm wondering if you have any advice for us of how we separate those two, how we use logic for us and emotion for others. I think is a hard balance to get right when you're talking about these solutions.
You know, I used to have a boss that said to me, "Hey, Mike, you're very emotional. You wear your emotions on your sleeve. You're passionate. I'm going to challenge you to keep things silent for just a season, because wait to rejoice. Don't gloat over victory early on. It may be very disappointing. So wait, because victory is far better years later than it is the day that you could rejoice over it. So in time, you find out, I'm more mature now, of course, that oh, wow, 4 years later for people to come back and say, hey, Mike, I was thinking about what you said 4 years ago. Oh, you were? Oh, that's interesting. And so now they become emotional over what I hid as emotion 4 years earlier, but I was doing everything I could. So the old saying about be like a duck, you're paddling underwater like a frantic person, but nobody sees it. You're calm on the top because very few people buy from a nervous salesperson. Very few people will buy from someone who doesn't believe what they're saying, or they're trying to push you into something that they believe in. That doesn't happen. The best salespeople are those who stay calm, those who are relaxed. In fact, I learned this lesson early in life. There was an insurance salesman for Mutual of Omaha in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area. And he drove around this really nice Cadillac. And I said, hey, Tom, Don't people get offended when you drive up with that nice Cadillac and on the back you got moo manager for cows on farms? He said, Mike, you don't understand. I get to their door, I'm the most relaxed person, and I say, you see that Cadillac out there? Do you think I need a dime of your money? I don't. And he said, they immediately connect with me because I really don't need their money, but I'm able to convey that message so they buy from me. And I said, that's interesting. I never thought of that before. Somebody who feels like, sir, if you don't buy my product, my family's going to go hungry. I'm like, man, don't put that guilt on me. Don't force me to buy your product. Convince me.
No, I think that's great advice. I really love the part about celebrating later, because I feel like sometimes salespeople get those happy years and they celebrate the sale before the check even clears, and that's a bad position to be in. Or they celebrate when they get a good lead and not when they close the sale. But I also love that it is more valuable later when you can look back on it, especially in innovation and technology sales, that sometimes our product takes a while to work. So even the customer isn't ready to celebrate on day one. They're ready to celebrate 2 years from now when they're seeing the cost savings or the benefits of the product. And that's a really interesting time to kind of circle back, ask for referrals, celebrate with the client, and make sure that you reinforce that they made a good decision when you were pitching it. That's really smart.
And I'll challenge all the salespeople out there. Some of my best friends through 30 years of working in the industry are salespeople who understood the need to be a friend to the person they're selling to. Not like they're falsifying being a friend by any stretch, but they connected well enough to understand that if I'm in hot water over technology implementation or process implementation, I need to know that that salesperson isn't on his next sales already without helping me be successful. And so I want to know they got skin in the game. And the best skin in the game is to feel like you're closer than a brother, closer than a sister in those times. And those friends stick with me for a long time, and I stick with them just as long, because we're ultimately all about helping one another, right? We live in a complex world. And if I can't find friends who are willing to go through the tough times with me, I may not have many friends. They're just work acquaintances or business acquaintances. So it's very important to consider yourself a friend to other people, but be serious over it. Don't falsify it by any stretch.
Now, let's talk about some of the techniques, especially for finding solutions and innovations. I feel like you're going to have something juicy for us here. Do you have any tips, techniques, hacks, ways to come up with ideas or maybe make connections or innovations happen that maybe we aren't aware of at this time?
Well, you may be aware of them. So, for instance, I mentioned virtual reality. I sell a lot. I probably sold over 10 million in virtual reality in the last couple of years without making a dime. But they buy because I'm able to talk about something called Skinware. People, what's Skinware? And I said, there's this thing called hardware, software, but a solutionary thinks it through and says, wait a minute, I may have hardware and software, but will people use it? That's the Skinware. So I'm holding in front of me a pair of virtual reality glasses that cost $10. And this here is Skinware, because if I work at a university and I want to sell virtual reality to our students, I don't think it's going to work if they got to wrap a pair of goggles around their hairdo. They just got done doing it at 8 a.m. and I'm asking them to mess it up. I don't have to worry too much, but some do. And so this becomes Skinware that goes on my smartphone and clips on it. And suddenly I get to be immersed in virtual reality in a completely fresh new way. And completely change the way people perceive education. So I can show you human anatomy, take you into a jet engine, all through what? A $10 pair of glasses. Now, ultimately what I did in numerous cases, Mike, you're a genius, $10. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. You can put your own name on here if you want. You can buy them in China for $3 on volume. And so they say, oh, wait, you're trying to sell me immersive learning, the concept, not the product. You got it. And that's what a lot of people miss. Don't ever sell a product, even though you're selling a product. You're selling a solution to their problem. And therefore, you're helping to drive the event and the excitement, because I can't wait to get my name on those $10 pair of glasses and show others what can be done.
Yeah, I think the other thing you just did for us is you showed us how it can be done. And I think that's a big part of the solution, is especially when it's really a big innovation or something they've never seen before, or they don't trust that it can work. I think you really have to demonstrate how it works, let them see it, get their hands on it, hold it up for them, let them hold it in their hands so that they can get a grasp of what a solution would look, sound, and feel like, right?
In fact, proof in the pudding is this. Over the last 7 years, we're now nationally known, internationally known for immersive learning. We've had at least 400 people fly in to Tulsa, Oklahoma and find out how to do this. Why? Because their own solutionary maybe or technologist brought the wrong stuff, purchased the wrong stuff. And every president's worst nightmare with technology is that it sits idle. Nobody uses it. It's called shelfware, right? So we got shelfware, now Skinware, you understand a little bit better. And so they said, Mike, how is it that you've got 80% participation in your solution where I can't get 2 people to use it? Well, you forgot Skinware. People don't want to wrap those goggles. It makes no sense to me. Now, what made more sense to me is that this is the common denominator, the smartphone. This is cheap. It can be put on my belt loop or in my purse, and I'm on with life. And so the term that we coined is called the fluidity of education. We live in a fluid world with fluid economies, fluid people, fluid jobs, fluid governments, fluid political systems. Why not make education more fluid? And so I'm around, you can look up that term, fluidity of education, Michael Mathews, and you'll find numerous articles. Now, what I'm really selling is how do we transform things and stop having technology companies sell more, excuse the language, junk? Because I cannot stand when a salesperson comes to me and says, I've got this great analytical tool, or I got a bucket full of analytics. And I say, get out of here. My customers don't want a handful of analytics. They want intelligence. Help me get to an intelligent solution, and you might have yourself a sale. And so I believe a lot of salespeople are using the wrong vernacular, all because their company brought them to the marketing 101 program, or the marketing team created the slicks for them to sell by. And so people don't buy that way. So I happen to work in higher education, and here's a saying I've used for a lot of salespeople that sell to education. Most faculty or academic people would believe a lie if it's in a textbook before they'll believe the truth on a sales piece of collateral. Yeah. And it's just their nature. They believe a textbook. I can't change that. That's their paradigm. That's their DNA. And so what if I could author some things as a salesperson and be seen more like they are? Oh, they buy from me. So that's why you can look hundreds of articles. I love writing, by the way. So it comes natural for me. And so the ideal problem for salespeople in any organizations is their marketing team won't let them write. I hit a sore spot. Marketing teams are very controlling, very biased towards trademark, color styles, font size, and nobody can break the code and say, wow, that's a tough situation. So part of this for salespeople is, well, be creative, because I haven't seen really that many sales presentations or marketing slicks work. Especially for seasoned buyers like myself. I said, oh, please don't do that to me. Don't put me through a 20-minute presentation. I can't bear it. I've got to do that every day. Shorten the story for me, make it practical, but hopefully you know my problem before you show up so I can see that you're a solutionary like myself.
I love what you said about intelligence over data. I think that's the key. Now we live in a world with way more data. I'm not sure we live in a world with way more intelligence. You can bring a lot more value with intelligence and synthesizing that data and telling them what it means, or using it to solve a problem than you can anything else. I really love it. Great conversation today here with Michael Mathews, VP of Innovation and Technology at Oral Roberts University. You can find him at Oral Roberts University, or look up Michael Mathews 1T on LinkedIn. But I wanted to get to know you a little bit better here, Mike, before we say goodbye. 3 quick questions. Number one, what does success look like for you now in your career?
Success looks like I could do something and I can call my spouse and say, Pam, you can put on my gravestone now. I just shifted something. Because we all work very diligently. I've got 25, 30 years in the workplace. I've seen my grandparents die of working too hard, parents. I don't want to end up like that. So it's what significant impact. A famous person who was the president of Antioch University said, everyone should be ashamed to die until they have did one great deed for humanity. And so success to me looks like I can look back and see a couple successes that shifted thought, or maybe boiled the ocean in its own metaphoric way. And I've got about 3 of those already behind me, but I still want 3 more. I'm not greedy. Yeah. I just want to know that my work mattered.
And what was the biggest lesson learned or hurdle you had to get over in your career in order to be successful?
Understand who you are. Don't pretend to be somebody you're not. It doesn't work. If you are who you truly are, you're going to end up in the right place. You're going to end up at the right organization. You're going to end up maybe selling or making or delivering the right stuff. But too many people are so worried, and this is frightful for Americans, because I go to Norway, meet a taxi cab driver, and he's enjoying life. And I said, why do you enjoy life so much? He said, oh, you don't understand. In Norway, I don't have to worry about health insurance. I get to be a taxi cab driver because that's what I'm called to do. And I still get to go get my stuff operated on, and dental work done, and everything. So many people in America are sentenced to a career based off health insurance fear. And that's frightful for me. But it's hard to get away from that, the way we've structured things. And so greatest lesson learned is still understand who you are and do your best to be exactly that, because then you'll be satisfied and know that you are truly making a difference.
Love that. Do you have a favorite quote?
Yeah, my favorite quote, Albert Einstein said it, great spirits always find great opposition from mediocre minds. And that's a lesson learned too. Be careful who you hang around. Yeah, I've got to be friends with people maybe I don't want to be friends with, but at the same time, I got to understand, are they a negative influence or a positive influence? And don't worry what they say. Great spirits will always encounter violent opposition from mediocre minds. Albert Einstein.
Hey, that's a good one. For everybody here, Michael, what would you say is one attitude you would like people to have for being a solutionary?
One attitude, that nothing's impossible, but understand that the right time is just as important as doing what you think is impossible.
And one key behavior or action item you would like people to do?
Stay positive. Understand that the most valuable piece of property known to humanity is still between your two ears.
And the best technique, tool, or hack to use?
Best, make a lot of good friends, be kind to people, and care about people.
I love it. Again, that's Michael Mathews from Oral Roberts University. You can find more information on their website there. For more information on Sandler, you can get any of our free resources at Sandler.com, or learn more by reaching out to a local trainer in your area or somebody on our enterprise team if you have more than one area. As always, you can subscribe to this podcast, share it with somebody that you think needs to hear it. And thank you for listening. Remember, whatever you are, be a good one. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training with over 200 locations. For more information, visit Sandler.com. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe to get notified about future sales and leadership videos from Sandler.
The Sandler Summit returns in 2023. Each new event builds exponentially upon the energy and success of the prior year. The 2022 Sandler Summit event was a huge success for everyone who attended, so don't miss the next one. Buy your tickets to the Sandler Summit at Sandler.com/summit.